Hey, everybody. Happy Wednesday, and thank you for joining us. I'm Stacy, the teacher marketing manager at ClassTag, and I'm joined by an amazing educator who I'm going to allow to introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Jen, and I've been a kindergarten teacher for 16 years. So I will be here to answer some questions from the lower level.
Okay, perfect. And so today we are talking about having those great parent relationships and how they can transform your classroom. So you have the kids, you have little bitty ones. So for you got to talk to those parents because when they go home and their parents like, "What'd you do at school today?" Nothing.
I ate lunch and I went to recess.
There you go. There's the highlights right there. Lunch and recess. That or mine says I went and played on the computers or went to PE. It's all the activity things. Not really telling me anything about what he actually did at school. So, why do you think it's so important to start the year off with developing relationships with parents?
Well, in kindergarten, it's really important to remember that um, a parent is sending their baby to you. And even though they're school age, it's still their baby. And you want to make sure that you let the parents know that you're going to take really good care of their child and that it's important to you too, and that you're a team and you're going to work together. So before the year starts, I like to send out a class tag invitation to everybody ahead of time so that I can introduce myself before they come to orientation. We have an orientation usually the day before school starts, so they can come in and meet us. But, some parents work and they're not able to make it. So it's nice for them to connect with me on class tag first so that they know there's always a way to get a hold of me. And class tag is nice too because it's not as formal as an email, so they can send kind of like a text to the teacher. And it can be really short. You can introduce yourself. You can send a quick message. You don't have to feel like the pressures of a formal email, and they know how to get a hold of me right away.
I think you hit on something really important. Just because a parent can't be there at the meet the teacher, it doesn't mean they don't care. Some parents work night shifts, they work, all these odd shifts, and some of them are away from home. So there might be one parent at home and one's, off working for a couple of weeks at a time. So, it's easy to assume that parents don't care when the reality is they do. They're trying to do everything they can to take care of their kids. So, how do you specifically make sure you're building relationships with those parents, the ones that aren't at the events?
I always try to lead with the thought process that every parent is doing the absolute best that they can for their child, and that's not going to be the same for every parent. My best may not be the same as your best or as anyone else that's watching today or watching the replay. Our best is going to be different, and my best today may look different than tomorrow. So and always, my boss a few years ago always said to us at our faculty meetings, every parent is sending you the very best that they have. Every child is it's the very best that they have, and we need to take that child and nurture what they brought and go from there. And that has always stayed on my heart every year since that principal said that to me, and that was very, very early in my career. At every early faculty meeting, she would say that, remember, tomorrow when the kids come, that's the very best that parent has to give, and keep that in mind as you're starting your year, because we don't all start with the same tools, but it is our job as educators to inspire those children, work with those families, and we all have different obstacles we're overcoming. And again, they change weekly, daily, hourly. We need to just make sure that we're being an ally to the parent. Like, hey, we're here, we're on your team. We want you to know that we care about your kid no matter what. We're not against you. Sometimes it can feel like that. So we want to just make sure we're leading with positive words and positive communication.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And, in my experience as a parent of a little one, I found myself asking my son's teacher a lot of questions that I felt like were dumb questions. Like, okay, how do you get him to just do what you say? Like, what is it you're doing that I'm not? Because, I teach kids, but I teach middle school kids. Like, little bitty kids are totally different. And, for a parent with a child who's autistic or who has certain things, teachers have been trained on how to deal with those. So, do you get a lot of questions from parents like that? Like, how do you do this? Because I can't do it the way you can.
Uh, and I'm a parent too, and my kids don't always listen to me either. Parents will say, "You're so lucky. You're a teacher, and your kids can just listen." My kids are just kids too, so sometimes remember, parents, if you're a parent and listening, you're your child's safe space. And you're going to see your child act differently at home than I'm going to see in the classroom. Your child may have a different type of behavior at school because they're in a different environment, a different situation, and when they're at home, they can feel more like themselves and express some of their more true emotions. And sometimes at school, I'm not going to see that. And you can ask anyone that knows me. I'm one of the most structured people that you'll ever meet. A lot of my colleagues and my bosses will tell you that. And so my day is very structured. And when you're at home, uh, sometimes it's just not possible. You can't run on a daily schedule that has lunch at exactly the same time and the exact same recess. And you're not going to have a specials teacher every day at your house. So my home schedule is not as structured as my work schedule is. And having a structured schedule does help that for everyone. Because if lunch changes its time by 5 minutes, every stomach in the class knows that. And the kids will say, "Well, I'm so hungry." And even if it's just something simple, like, "Oh, we had an assembly, so that we're running 5 minutes behind so they can set up," the kids know. And parents don't always have that luxury of explaining it so simply. We run on a very tight schedule because we're not just one unit, there's lots of units in a school. But I always tell the parents there's no silly questions. I do use my office hours on ClassTag to kind of set some boundaries because I am a person too, and you are going to need time to sleep. It's really important. It sounds silly, but you do. But if you need to ask a question, please ask it. And I always do open. And I was just telling, I have a new teammate joining my team this year, and I was just telling her on Monday, I start off my orientation with, I am a self-proclaimed oversharer when it comes to information about my classroom. I would much rather you know than be sitting at home thinking, I have no idea what she expects. I have no idea what I'm supposed to be doing. I don't want you to feel like that. As a kindergarten teacher, part of your job is to be teaching the parents too. Not that they don't know, but school is a new experience for a lot of people, and I want them to feel confident and welcome in the system. I want their first year in the classroom to feel like they know what they're doing and that it's a positive experience because it's their first one and you're going to build upon it. And I want them to feel like, wow, this is great. I can't wait to have more experiences in this school district.
I think that's amazing. You really want those parents to feel welcome. But you said something about setting boundaries because you're a person too. And I think that's an important thing to say to teachers is that it's okay to set boundaries and you should. Um, how do you establish your boundaries at the beginning of the school year to let parents know, hey, I'm available, but I'm not available 24/7?
It's really hard because you know that some of the parents worry about their kids, about doing the wrong thing. They don't want to upset you. They don't want their child to get in trouble. And as a teacher, some of that stuff weighs on your mind. And the nice thing about ClassTag's hours is that there's just a friendly little message at the top of the screen when parents go to message you. And it just says, the teacher's not available right now. It may take extended time for them to get back to you. And it won't alert your phone or however you have it set up. You don't have to feel that pressure that there's messages waiting for you. And it really depends on your personality. Some teachers are okay with, I'll check my email in the morning and deal with things in the morning. Other teachers have a personality that they're like, I'll answer some of the little questions at night before I go to bed, and then I'll have more time in the morning. you'll have to find a situation that works well for your personality or for your family style, whatever works well at your house. You don't want to be answering messages all night. And I know in some of our class tag meetings, we've talked about parents that work night shift, and they're not trying to be rude. They're just, that's their life schedule. And they care about their kids too. So try not to get all up in arms all the time. People might be messaging you at 3 a.m. because that's when they got home from work and checked their child's folder and they were like, oh my gosh, there's a test and I didn't know. So try not to assume all the time that people are intentionally trying to bother you or, out to get you. Try to always lead with kindness. Again, they're sending you the best they have and they're doing the best that they can. So try to, look a little deeper into the situation and see if there's something you can do to help with that. Like, oh, that's right, you do work night shift. I understand if you message me, then just understand it might take me a little while longer to get back to you. In my district, we have a 24-hour rule. We're supposed to try to get back to parents within 24 hours. If your district has that, it might be important to mention that to parents or have that like in your newsletter so parents are aware that instruction is important and that's your first job is to be teaching. So you're not going to be responding immediately when you get a message.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And for teachers that are like me, if I didn't turn my office hours on, if a message came in at 11 o'clock at night, I would answer it because that's just my personality type. I don't want to leave it there because what if that parent is worried about their child? Like you said, I would answer it all night long. So for those that share, that mindset with me, set the office hours, set your boundaries because you're going to save yourself. And it also lets those parents know, I haven't forgotten you. I know you're there. So it's okay to do that. Like, don't be afraid to set up those boundaries. It's healthy and you need to.
It is possible to care too much. Not too much in general, but so much that it is impacting your own sleep schedule, which will then impact your ability to be an effective educator the next day.
Yes. I know when I was tired, I was cranky, and my students knew that too. So I could tell them, okay, I'm a little tired today. Just don't mind the cranky. Let me know if I'm being cranky. And they would, because, 8th graders, they'll tell you.
Yeah. Well, kindergartners will also tell you, but maybe like not as gently, but yeah. It's okay because we're all people and it's okay to mention those things because they're people too.
Yeah, and it makes you relatable when you're honest about it and you're real about, I'm sorry, I'm having a bad day. It happens. They know that.
It actually helps build the community, honestly.
It does. It really does. And building that community and being real with your students and even to a point being real with your parents, and letting them know, look, I'm a parent too. I think that was a conversation I had a lot with parents when they would call and we would talk about what's going on with their child. And, when they start talking about the struggle they're having, I could relate to that struggle. And I think that makes you relatable to parents when you're not afraid to say, yeah, you know what? I'm having that problem with my child too. Here's what I'm trying. Here's what I might suggest. Here's what didn't work for me, because you're putting yourself in their position, because for a lot of us, we are parents. And it's okay to say, I've had that problem with my own child and here's how I tried to handle it. Because in my experience, I worked at a Title I school. There was a lot of single parents or grandparents raising kids, and they were struggling because they were trying things that might not have been working, and they literally didn't know what else to do. I mean, I had a mom say that to me one time. I don't know what else to do. I've tried everything I can think of.
And can that's you help not me? To say, like, if you are a new teacher and you don't have kids that you don't understand, in that case, you can say, like, I'm here to listen and I'm here to help you. So, and that's when you can say to them, like you were just saying, what have you tried? What things does your child like? What do they respond well to? What do they not respond well to? We're going to get through this together because we're a team. That's something that you can always focus on because you are going to care about your students no matter what. So even kids that you might feel like on the first day that they're going to be hard to reach, you are going to care about every student in your class. So even parents that if you're not a parent, you're still going to be able to be part of the team, even if you don't have kids. It is easier in some cases to relate for sure, but don't feel like, well, I'm not a parent. What am I going to do? Just say, I am here to listen, and I will help you with whatever I can help you with.
Yeah, definitely. And, um, I think the more relationships I had with parents, the more my classroom dynamic changed. Because you have those kids that they know their parent doesn't answer the phone, or, in most of their experience, the teacher hasn't called their parent. Those are the ones that you really like. If you get to the parent at the beginning and you build that relationship and they know that you're speaking to their parent, they're going to act different in your class because they know what's going to happen if they push too far, and they know their parents involved. I mean, sometimes it's that simple. Knowing that their parent knows you and is talking to you and is involved, that's enough. Have you had that experience?
I've had kids say, well, you're going to call my mom and I'm going to be in trouble. And I would say to them, I'm not calling your mom to get you in trouble. We're going to talk because we care about you and we need you to be safe, or we need you to learn. And what's happening right now isn't helping those things. We care about you. We're a team. And that's why we talk. We're not talking to get you in trouble. We're talking because we want to make sure you're safe at school and we want to make sure that you're learning. And if those things aren't happening, then yes, we're going to talk because we're part of your team. It's not because we're out to get you. I had a little friend always say that to me, well, I'm going to get in trouble if you talk to my parent. And not necessarily. Maybe I'm calling to tell your parent a good thing that happened today because this happened. And I need to tell them that that happened today. So it's important too to talk about the good things with parents as well, because we don't always want to be calling to share bad news, because then that's when parents stop answering the phone when the school district's number comes up on the caller ID.
Yeah, I agree with that. And, for some of those parents that they are really trying with their kids, that one phone call of validation is what they need. I mean, anyone who is a parent knows the struggle that sometimes you face with your child when you're doing everything you think you can do and they're just not responding to it. Terrible twos come to mind, maybe some threes in there. My kids are little, so these are the years that are in my head. But that one phone call of validation or that one message on class tag of validation can be everything. I mean, it really can. And it's super simple to send a message. It's so easy. And you can do it any time of day. That's one of my favorite features, is that I don't have to wait till there's no students in my room to send a message to parents. I can't call a parent in the middle of the room with a bunch of kids and talk about something confidential, but I can get on my computer and send a class tag message like while I'm standing in the corner. And I can do that during class. I don't have to wait till the end of the day and then send like 20 messages. I can do it throughout the day. And it makes it easier for me and more accessible for parents too, because maybe they check it on their lunch break, or maybe they check it at some other time and they can call me earlier rather than later if we need to talk. I like the versatility of being able to message whenever I need to. And I can do it from my Chromebook that the school gives me, or I can do it from my phone. And it's just super simple.
Another thing with the messaging too is I like to keep in mind, if I get more than two or more messages about the same question, that I should probably send a message out to the whole class. Like, did you send homework home from 2 or more parents? I should probably post an announcement to the class just to make sure everybody's nerves are calmed, and then you're not getting those panicked messages at 10 o'clock. Or when you know there's a day off of school tomorrow, or a change in schedule, post it as an announcement, even though the district sent out 2 emails and a phone call. A lot of people trust what's coming directly from the classroom teacher as their first source of information. I think some of the other contacts sometimes get lost as like white noise. There's so many emails, there's so many phone calls. If they just get lost in there, a lot of people rely on you as the classroom teachers as their direct source of information. If it didn't come from you, then it's not happening. So, and you can schedule those to go out. I sometimes schedule like an entire month's worth of announcements in one sitting when we get our calendar from my principal, so that I don't forget something. And those parents are there watching for those to come, and they can always refer right back to them. So that's another way to keep those relationships with the parents. They're counting on that class tag app to keep them where they need to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And I did want to do a quick demo for anybody that might not know how to do this. So I'm gonna hopefully this is gonna come on correctly. We're gonna hope. Here we go. Okay, there we go. All right. So um, I will feature a couple of things. One that viewers may not know at this moment is that you now have access to all of the lovely themes that we've got going on. I'm a huge proponent of themes. You'll hear this if you've watched me on any lives, you'll know this about me. To change your theme, if you go into settings, you scroll down and you go to this Class Tag
I
Plus
was pretty
themes,
excited about this
have access to
myself.
all of these. And there will be new ones added as we start the school year. Last school year, it was like every month we got a new one, and they're all beautiful. And each one of your classrooms can have a different theme. So get in there, play with them. I'm going to change this one because I can. And so use the themes. It's a great way to make your online class feel like home to you and give some personality to your class. We all decorate our classrooms to show our personality, so why not decorate your online space as well?
I already
So,
changed mine to space to match my classroom theme.
oh, I love the space one. It's amazing. I'm a huge tech and like STEM teacher, so space was right up my alley.
Themes are
Agreed.
totally my thing too.
Yes, and I had a different one for every class, and I'm not sorry about it. So, if you wanted to send a message, easy way to do it. This little purple bubble up here. You can just click on it and you'll see your messages in here that you've already sent, or you can do start conversation and you can send a message this way. Now, one thing that you can do now is you can do one message or you can do multiples. So like if you wanted to send a message to a group of users, you could do that by clicking, just selecting multiple people and send a group message, which is awesome because I know for robotics, I had groups of kids that work together. So being able to send that message to multiple people at once was wonderful. Instead of having to message each individual parent, like, this is what we're doing. That was a life saving thing for me. So you can send an individual message or group messages, which is fantastic. And you just
Can you
select
show
them.
the themes again when you're finished in this section?
Yes, I will. So you select them, you hit create. Whoops, if I click the right button there, type your message, hit send, and it's that simple. And I mean, I could send a message in like 1 minute. And if it was something that I was sending the same message to multiple parents, like, hey, I need to talk to you about, I have concerns about your students' grades. Can you message me back? That might be a message I could copy and just paste with different parents if I wanted to do that way. Or maybe I have some like canned messages that I have on a Google Doc or something because I send them all the time. So it doesn't have to take that long to send a message. It's really, really simple if you make it simple. Some of us like to make it difficult, me included, but it doesn't have to be. Okay, so let's go back to those beautiful themes. All right, so you go to the class settings, make sure you're in your classroom. Go to the settings, go down to Class Tag Plus themes. And just because you said space, now we have to set space. So you click on the one that you want, hit save. Oh, and there it is.
Totally. That's why I said you were my favorite person the other day, because I discovered that space was in there.
I love space. I love this theme. This was my robotics theme. So, and this is free for all users now, which is amazing. Okay, so let me turn that demo back off. We may go back to it in a minute. But I wanted to ask a question. We talk about why it's important to have good relationships with parents, but one thing that we really don't address is the bad relationships. I know I've had some kind of stressing relationships with parents, and I think that's what I'm getting at is bad relationships with parents can be very stressful. And I think it can kind of create chaos in your classroom. Would you agree?
Yes, it takes work to maintain and establish relationships with parents. And I was just looking, there's a comment in the Facebook chat to be open with parents. It's not easy to have difficult conversations with parents. It's not easy to have a difficult conversation as a parent. And a lot of times when I talk to parents, I say to them, I want to have this conversation with you because I spend a lot of time with your child. And if I don't tell you this, no one's going to be able to tell you this. And I want to help your child. That's what my job is. And I care about them. And I want this to be a successful experience for them. So I do have a lot of conversations where I say, I need to share this with you because I need to be honest with you. Because if I'm not honest with you, then I'm not doing my job. And they're not always going to go well. And I kind of just feel my way out with each parent. Again, every person is different. We react differently. And I try to just find the best way to communicate with them. Some parents are like, you know what, email is best for me. I send me an email, I'll respond right back. Phone calls are best for me. Class tech messages are best for me. I kind of try to keep notes on those things. If it's extremely difficult, you can involve your administrator. Hopefully, you have a supportive administrative team at your school and they can help you. Our guidance counselor will sometimes get involved as well. And he can, because we have some other services too for kids that need some extra support. So sometimes our guidance counselor will either sit in on parent conferences if it's an in person meeting, or we also have some like different kinds of parent services that we have for kids, and the parents come in and meet, and our team will meet with them as well. But if you're in a situation where you feel unsafe, you should not meet with someone by yourself. You would always want to contact someone else on your team at your school, and every school has their own kind of setup for how that works. And if you're a new teacher, you would want to check with your mentor or with your administrator and find out what that is ahead of time. And just say, like, I'm not anticipating something happening, but I want to make sure that I know what to do just in case something would come up, because I want to make sure that I am informed and I can support my students in the best way possible at all times.
And I think if you're worried about calling a parent, an administrator is not going to say, no, I'm not going to sit with you through this phone call. They're going to do it. Like, they would rather you come and say, hey, I need help. Or not even an administrator. If you have a lead teacher or a department chair, go talk to them. They will not hesitate to sit through a phone call with you or help you through a situation. And I know several teachers in my old school had a situation where a parent was like screaming at them and cussing at them on the phone. That's not okay. If that's happening, you need to tell an administrator, because there is a process in place for dealing with those types of situations. But in my experience in 8 years, I started every phone conversation with, the good things, like, your child is great at this. I really want to help them, but here's the problem I'm having. And I think a lot of times it's how you take the conversation. So if you start with showing that you care, showing that, you want to help this child, you genuinely want to help them, that parent's going to be on your side. They're going to help you.
And honestly, you do care. You do.
Yeah.
You might be frustrated in the moment, but you do care. So always start with why you care and how you care, and then go into what your concern is, because you wouldn't be calling the parent if you didn't care. So start with why you care about the child and how you're working with the child, and then talk about what your concerns are. You always want to lead with kindness. That's always my thing.
Yeah, and I'm going to put this comment up there. I think it's important. When you're meeting with a parent, it's always a good idea to have someone else in the room. It protects you, it protects them. And I think a lot of districts have this policy too, that if you're meeting with someone, there needs to be another party there. It protects everybody. And it's never a bad idea, I don't think, to have that third person in there. And I think too, at my school, when I started, if you had never called a parent before, it's kind of terrifying. It is, especially when you hear the horror stories. So there were teachers that would volunteer to come sit with you if you had to call a parent. We also had translators that if we needed to call a parent that spoke Spanish or another language, we could go to them and they would help us. We could tell them what we needed to say and they would tell the parent. So we had the ability to call a parent who spoke Spanish.
That's great. That's a great support system.
Yes, it was wonderful, and it's needed. Because, you know, those parents that speak Spanish, they want to be involved as much as anybody else. They just have that language barrier. So being able to call them, you know, if we needed to talk on the phone, you know, obviously I would send them a class tech message first if I could, but some of the situations you have to make a phone call for. And when it got to that point, being able to go and have our translator do that with us was great.
That's great advice. If you need that kind of support, make sure you investigate ahead of time and see if you do, because you want to include the parent, not immediately exclude them and make them feel like, well, they can't even talk to me. They don't know. No, I can't help because I don't even know what they're saying. You want to make sure you know your students and their families so that you can make them feel included right away. And having the translator is going to immediately make that parent feel like, wow, they really care about me.
Yes, definitely. And so my last question, has partnering with your parents helped you to work and stress less than before?
100% yes. It's not always easy, but at the and some of the hardest things about your job are not going to be easier, but you're going to feel more fulfilled about what you're doing. And going in education, you know that it's not an easy job. We don't teach so we can be rich. In terms of money, we teach so that we can make a difference, because that's what teaching is about. It's about making our community better. It's about helping people and children. And so you know that going in, you're not going to be a millionaire being a teacher. We already know that. And so when you work with your parents and you get those notes at the end of the year, I got one this year that was a card that was written front and back with just such nice things to say. And I was doing my job. And it's just nice to have someone say, like, thank you for caring about my child, for taking the time out of your day to make my child feel like part of your community. Like, those are the moments that you're going to remember forever. And I have a box in my room. It's the Good Feelings box. And when I get those notes, I put them in the box. And you're going to have days where you're like, I don't know about this. I'm not sure if this is for me anymore. Go to the Good Feelings box. You open those cards up and you read them. Sometimes they're from parents. Sometimes they're from kids. Sometimes it's a nice note from your principal or administration, and you put them in that box and you read them, and you remember why you're there and who you're there to spread your impact upon. And the parents, so they see you, but just be honest with them. I know there's been a lot of comments about that in the Facebook chat. Just be honest with them. You're there for their child. You're part of their team. You want this to be a good experience for them, but especially for their child.
Yeah, definitely. And I don't think, as a parent, you know, when the teacher's like, "Oh, your child's so amazing," and I'm like, "Which child are you talking about?" Because I don't think it's mine. I've never questioned them though. Like, did he do what they said he did? No, never, not once, not once. You know, and I think that's the thing. Like, most parents are going to believe you, and even if they have questions, they're going to ask their child. But don't be afraid to call and ask and talk to them. As long as you're trying to help and you're legitimately concerned, which we know you are, you're going to be fine.
And you're not going to have all the answers all the time. You're not. We don't. I'm going to be starting my 17th year. I learn new things. We're always going to be learning new things. We're going to meet new students that we've never had situations like before. Always be willing to try something new, something different, find something new, because you're not going to know everything, and it's fine not to know everything, because you're not. And learning something new is going to make you a better teacher.
I absolutely agree. So if you have any other questions, put them in the chat. We'll be checking it and answering it into tomorrow. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back next week with another session. So we'll see you then. Have a wonderful night.